Are you tired of making a fire drum loop just to get to the keyboard and have absolutely no clue what you're doing, just clicking on random notes, just kind of hoping that it works? Or have you tried to actually put in the work to learn the keyboard by searching it up on YouTube just to have a guy tell you, so you need to quadratify the pentatonic DeLorean of the deliberative, and you don't even know if he's speaking freaking English? Well, if so, then you found the right place, because I'm your teacher MIDI, and by the end of this video, you will never be stuck ever again when it comes time to lay down chords. All right, so let's get the basics out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and pull up a piano. So you wanna go to packs, you wanna go to instruments, close grand piano. First of all, to bring up the keyboard, you want to go over here. This thing right here is called the keyboard. Each of these little buttons right here are called keys, and every single key plays a note. That sound is a note. Now, each of these notes is labeled by a letter, and these letters repeat throughout the keyboard. So you can see that this says C, this says C. So in order to make this easier, we're just gonna go ahead and set all of these to have their labels on them. So to do that, we can come up here to this button, view key labels, and we can click on all notes. So now every single note on the keyboard is going to be properly labeled with the correct letter. So as you can see, it goes from A to G, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then repeats again at A. So that's how the white keys are named. Now, as far as the black keys name is basically whatever letter is under it plus a hashtag, which in music, instead of calling it a hashtag, is called sharp. So this note is C, this black note is C sharp, this is D, D sharp, etc. Now, this grid area right here, this is where you place notes down. Click, you can drag it around. If you need to change the length of the note, go to the edge where you see this little arrow thing, and then you click and drag, and you can make the note play for a longer amount of time or a shorter amount of time. This down here is the volume, and it controls how loud the note is. So, and then if you want to reset it, hold Alt and click on the key and it'll reset it back to the default volume. Okay, and now that we understand the layout of the keyboard, now we can actually get into the music theory portion of the video, which actually isn't nearly as complicated as people make it out to be. Okay, so the first thing that you need to know when it comes to music theory is what a scale is. So let's just start with C. And the C scale is basically all of the notes that sound good with this note C. As long as you stay within that scale, all of the notes should sound good together. And if you choose notes that are outside of the C scale, that's how you end up with this. Now, the thing with scales is that every single note, which we call the root note because every single other note in the scale is based around that original root note, has two different scales. It has the major scale and it has the minor scale. Now, at its most simple, the major scale sounds happy and the minor scale sounds sad. So this right here is the C major scale and this right here is the C minor scale. You can always just Google it until you have it memorized, or don't memorize it. I just freaking Googled this just now. But the cool thing with scales is that you only need to know the scale for one note, because the way scales work is the scale for every single note is exactly the same. If I want to move from C minor to G minor, literally I could just move it and then this is G minor. So if you know one scale, you know all of the scales. However, for simplicity's sake for the lesson, we're just gonna stick with C major. Also, just so that we can keep an eye on the actual scale without it being in the way or disappearing, I'm just gonna grab a second piano so that we can always keep the other one in the background. As you can see, these notes are all highlighted. Okay, time for chords. So the bass chord for every single scale is 1, 3, 5, which basically just means literally first note 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what that sounds like is this. That right there is a C major chord. And then with the minor scale, it's literally the exact same thing. It's just that the scale looks different, but it's still 1, skip 2, go to 3, skip 4, go to 5. That is now a C minor. Okay, now that we understand how to make a major chord and a minor chord, let's learn how to jazz it up a little bit. Because yeah, this chord sounds all right, but it's called the bass chord for a reason. It sounds freaking basic and boring. So we're gonna go ahead and make it a little spicy. Now, the way I like to make it a little spicy is I like to add a bass note and I like to add a seventh. What the heck does that mean? For a bass note, literally just grab one and then just copy it lower down on the keyboard. Just copy your root note. As far as adding a seventh, you could probably guess what that means. Literally just count to note number 7. So you got 1, you got 2, you got 3, you got 4, you got 5, you got 6, you got 7. Bam, add the 7. Literally, that's it. So let's listen to what it sounds like before just being basic and boring. And then let's listen to what it sounds like when I add the bass and the 7th. See how it just sounds like more full, like it just has more like personality to it? That's how you want to make chords sound a little bit more interesting and unique. Okay, so now that we know how to make a chord, now it's time to learn a progression. So a progression is literally just you planning out, I'm gonna go from this chord to this chord to this chord. Now, what progression you wanna use really all depends on the song that you're doing, because a progression uses a specific combination of major and minor chords to create a certain feel, and depending on what feeling you're trying to go for in your song, that is going to determine what combination you wanna actually use to get that feeling. So in order to find out what progression you actually need, I suggest to literally just Google it. No, seriously, just Google sad chord progressions and then just pick one of the things that pops up. Now, the reason why I say this is because, 1, why spend a whole bunch of effort memorizing a bunch of things that you can literally just type up in search in 3 seconds? And 2, I don't want to tell you in this video, use this one specific progression for this genre or mood, because then all of you are just going to end up making the exact same song because you're going to copy exactly what I'm doing. I want you to search it up yourself. Sad chord progression C major. Okay, they're saying you could use A minor, D minor, E minor. They're saying you could use A minor, F, C, E minor. Also, whenever you see them written out like this, the lowercase m means minor. If there's no minor next to the letter, that means it's a major chord. So this is A minor, F major, C major, E minor. And then they're also saying you can use C, A minor, D minor, G. And this is why I told you to search it up yourself, because instead of me telling you one thing to use, one person might say, oh, A minor, D minor, E minor, I'm gonna grab that. And then somebody else might say, oh, I'm gonna grab A minor, F major, C major, E minor, or somebody else might grab this one. That's why I suggest for you to search it up yourself. But we're gonna go back to the one that I want to use. I want this song that I'm doing to have like a melancholic vibe. Like, it's not all the way happy, but it's not all the way sad. And I already know off the top of my head, just from looking into progressions, I know that a 4-5-3-6 is perfect for what I want. I literally just searched 4-5-3-6 chord progression C major, and it gives me the chords right here. F major, G major, E minor, A minor, right? But you may notice right here, there's this weird thing, and this doesn't say 4-5-3-6. What the heck is this? Well, music is weird in the sense that they use the Star Wars counting numbers. So in order for you to understand this, you kind of have to understand how the Star Wars numbers work. So the way to explain it is I means 1 and V means 5. If you have one I, that means 1. If you have 2 I's, then that's 2. If you have 3 I's, that's 3. And then once you get to 4, it's IV. If the I is before the V, that means it's subtraction. So you have 5 minus 1, which gives you 4. The V is a 5. And then if you have an I after the V, that means it's 5 plus 1. So VI is 6, IV is 4, regular V is 5, and then each I is 1. Bam, 4-5-3-6, and it's a F major, G major, E minor, A minor. So we're gonna go ahead and place that on the keyboard. So we've got F major, G major, E minor, and A minor. Now, some of the more observant of you may be saying, hold up, wait a minute, some of these notes are outside of the scale because this is outside of it, and this is outside of it, and this is outside of it. Well, the thing with a scale, which I should have mentioned earlier, is that this scale repeats throughout the whole entire keyboard. It's not just this one section, it repeats throughout the whole entire keyboard. Every single C, every single D, every single E, every single F, G, A, B throughout the whole keyboard is within the scale. Not just these specific notes in this one area, but all of the notes that are the same letter. So as you can see, all of these actually are in the scale because because there's a C right here, there's a D right here, and then there's a E right there. Now let's move that back over. This progression sounds like this. So you can already hear from these chords that it's giving the right vibe that we want, and all of these notes sound good together, and it took no memorizing on our part. So work smarter, not harder. But this is where we add our own contribution, because obviously this literally took no brain power or creativity for us to do. So this is where we actually add our own little sauce, our own little flair, our own personality. So let's go ahead and spice these up in the same way that I taught you earlier. So we're gonna add a bass note, and we're gonna add a seventh to each of these chords. Okay, and here we are. So we have the bass note, which again, just copy whatever is the root note of that chord. So we got F, F, G, G, and then just add the seventh on top. And this is what we're rocking with right now. And just to remind you where we came from, originally it sounded like this. And now we got this going on. You can already hear that that sounds a million times more interesting. But if you want to make it even more interesting and you want to take it to that next level of saucy, this is my secret technique. Hey, editing MIDI here. So apparently I didn't actually discover this, and this technique is actually something called chord inversions. So yeah, the more you know. Anyway, so remember how I told you that a scale is every note that sounds good together? Well, if you're crazy like me, you would also hear that and think, okay, well, by that logic, that would mean that you also should be able to swap notes out for other notes in the scale, and it should still be on key, right? Because if all the notes in the scale sound good together, I should be able to use any of them, right? Well, apparently, yeah, you can do that. And that right there is the main secret that takes you from sounding amateur to sounding professional. Now, what I want to do with these chords, because since it's like that melancholic kind of bittersweet feel, I want it to be kind of like a chill, laid back kind of vibe. And for a chill, laid back kind of vibe, we don't want to have too much movement jumping from one chord to another chord. So if we listen to the chords here, you hear how they sound good, but it also sounds kind of jumpy. So what I want to do is I want to rearrange the notes so that each chord is kind of like closer together so that there's less movement between one chord to the next. So it's a smoother transition. With rearranging, you don't really need to move around too much. So let's just say this note is going upwards from F major to G major. So I'm gonna go ahead and move this note up from F to G because G is in the scale, but G is also a note within this chord. So because this note doesn't change, it'll be less of a movement from this chord to this chord. So something that I especially want to change is this E minor to this A minor, because this is way too big of a jump. So other than just changing a note to a different letter, we can also keep it the same letter, but just move it to a different position. So this G up here, we can move down to this G down here. And now this G and this G are the same. So now there's gonna be less movement because it's moving from the same note to the same note. Or something else that we could do is we could take this E and we can move it down here. As you can hear, everything's still on key, nothing sounds off, but we were able to give it a more smooth and chill feel to it. And just to show you where we started from, I went ahead and showed each different version of the same progression that we've been doing throughout the video, just so that you can hear how much these little changes actually impact the sound. So we started off with just the basic chords. Then we moved on to this. And finally this. So now that we have our chord progression laid out, the next step would be to add a melody to complement our chords and make the song more interesting. However, that's gonna have to wait until next time because this video is long enough. But if you want to see me make that video, go ahead and let me know in the comments and subscribe so that you don't miss when that video comes out. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like. But that's gonna be it for me today. So take care and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.
Man, look at that caboose, man. If she playing games, then I'm chucking up the deuce.